Ooh. Good day, loves. Well, Instagram, you know.
You
We
are
love
required to put that out of your mind.
Yes. Sending so much love. Welcome back to the Holistic Freedom Secrets podcast. Yes, this is episode 133, and it's B-Day, so we're getting into all things mind, spirit, emotions, mastery, mindset mastery, and all the things. Today we're talking about pure awareness, your anchor in emotional storms. If you don't know who I am, good day, loves. I am Coach Tensi, and this is
Emotional Storm, aka Cloud9, aka Sunshine.
Now we're rhyming. And
my name is Coach Soul.
Yes. And we are Ufulu Child. Ufulu means freedom, and we create experiences for freedom seekers. So specifically, we are geared toward the working mama and her family, helping those people like us to overcome autoimmunity and obesity in their homes on your pursuit of freedom as you see it, your vision of freedom for your life. And along the way, we're tightening up that holistic health. We're getting into self-discovery and
Today we want to understand that emotions are temporary experiences. We want to re-acknowledge different ways to channel negative experiences so that they don't control you. And we want to, put a different perspective on a couple specific negative experiences from a place of divine truth, right? And so, firstly, let's dive into what do we mean by pure awareness in the title.
Yeah. What does it mean?
Because if I were to say self-awareness, then that's usually interpreted as your mental image and your mental interpretation of your behavior and your personality. And that is largely what it means to be self-aware in regard to some context, in regard to like how you're acting or some event that happened or your general disposition. The page refreshed real quick. Just making sure the computer's all right. The self-awareness concept is mostly talking about an awareness that is purely mental, right? Logical, mental. Whereas when we say pure awareness, the word pure is a distinction from the other ways that we usually use the word awareness. And so what pure awareness is can't really be explained or labeled in words, but it can be easily discovered by way of this short way to do it. I don't want to call it like an exercise or whatever, but this short way of looking. Right now, watching this podcast or listening to it, you are aware of the podcast. You are also aware of you being aware of the podcast. And so there's a you that you are aware of, right? There's the general sense of the weight of your body. What?
Honey.
you are aware that you're hearing the sounds. So can you
Yes. And we are aware. They laid back, but it should be fine.
You are aware of the general weight of your body, the general sense of being in your body. If you have, aches and pains and things like that early in the morning, you're aware of this. You're aware of your breath. When you're called to be aware of it, you're aware of your sight. You're aware of your senses, right? And you are aware of a sense of yourself, which is aware of all of these things. The awareness that is aware of you. Okay, I'll say that a little slower. The awareness which is aware of you. This is what we call pure awareness. It is not involved in the dynamic play of what you would call my life, right? It's the space in which the dynamic play of my life happens within, but it is not touching, it is not involved, it does not change due to any event that happens. It is simply a pure awareness. So, this unchanging divine presence of life within you is what we're calling pure awareness. And why in this title we call it your anchor in emotional storms is because this pure awareness is infinite. It doesn't disappear. Although, like your breath, you're not always keeping your attention on it. But anytime that you call your attention to it, it's there, just like the breath or the heartbeat. Awareness is your anchor because it is unaffected, 100% unaffected, period, by external or even internal circumstances or emotional storms or insanity and mania versus calm and peaceful existence. It is simply aware. And much like the calm, deep depths of the ocean, whatever is happening on the surface of my life, the screen of my life, it simply is. Right? Unchanging. Now, when we experience negative emotions, when we experience emotions of any kind, you can imagine sitting by a river, right? And you're watching the leaves every now and again float by on the river. Some of the leaves float by and they get stuck behind a rock for a moment, and then they finally are able to follow the river further downstream. Many of them just pass by. These leaves, these twigs, these fish, whatever, they're going with the river. The river is flowing. The river itself is unchanging. Yet the emotions or the visitors are passing through. When you are able to observe that you are experiencing and even sometimes that you are behaving under the umbrella of an experience of negativity, and you can apply this analogy to your understanding of that, where you recognize in the moment that you're feeling negative, that the negativity itself is simply a temporary visitor, then and also that there is a pure awareness within you that is aware all of this is going on, that the ego does not want to acknowledge, but that is completely detached from the external or internal experiences that are making this moment negative for you. Completely detached from the negativity, then you can tap into your sense of pure awareness and properly channel that negative energy into a more harmonious behavior. When emotions arise, how do you react when you don't observe? When emotions arise, how do you react when you observe very deeply? When negative emotions arise, if you observe very deeply within yourself that this is arising, this is a temporary visitor, there is a pure awareness within me that is going to be here when this emotion leaves, and when this interpretation of what this circumstance means is exchanged for another interpretation, the pure awareness is going to remain exactly as it is now. When you observe deeply, how do you behave in the moment? When you don't observe and you just go with the emotion, how do you behave in the moment? So, just a super short recap. Your emotions are not who you are, right? They are experiences that pass through your existence. They're not permanent fixtures, even if they last for a few hours, or if something really big happens, maybe even a few days. Examples come and go. They come and go. And you don't construct them. You don't take time out of your day to color your life under this specific emotional experience, right? They come on their own. They leave on their own. You can't force them out a lot of the times if they're strong either. They have to run their course. And so allowing that to be true and allowing them to pass through on their own time helps you develop a sense of the observing, the awareness that is where you can stay grounded, right? And so, of course, as always, a little technique to be able to do that is just take 3 intentional breaths to acknowledge, you know, this is anger, this is frustration, this is depression, this is anxiety, this is fear. To just acknowledge this emotional experience is happening. I am aware of the me that is experiencing this emotion and the awareness itself. So the first breath, this is frustration. Second breath, I am aware of the me who is frustrated. Third and final breath, the awareness is not frustrated, because the awareness is completely detached from all things dynamic consciousness. It does not move, it does not expand, it does not contract, it does not hide, it cannot be hidden, it does not announce itself. It simply is. And so, naturally, it is peace incarnate. Not even incarnate, it is peace before incarnation, because incarnation would be dynamic consciousness. But it is peace, it is bliss, it is calm, it is warmth, it is stillness. And it is deeper than the negative experience and the emotions that arise from the negative experience. So once we are able to recognize the role of negative emotions, and understand that they're just messengers that can cause us to reflect deeply and grow from experiences, then we learn to channel those negative emotions through the truth of the I don't want to say separation, but the difference between your awareness and your ego, right? And don't even want to say your awareness, but pure awareness and ego, okay? And I'm not putting ego as a bad thing. It's just lower on the hierarchy of importance than awareness itself. But it's not having an ego is natural. It You can't really live a life without experiencing your personal sense of self. Okay, the awareness, pure awareness, is not a personal sense of anything, but to live life within the bubble of pure awareness, within the eternal and infinite space of pure awareness, of course there has to be a dynamic sense of one's own ego. Of course, you have a personality and things of this nature, and passions and all of that, likes, dislikes, things that make this temporary life that we live in the third dimension dynamic. Um, and Also, while it's on my mind, I want to acknowledge that there are physical practices that you can do also, more so on your own time, not necessarily in the moment of experiencing the negativity, like journaling, um, talking with a friend, or even like a therapist or something like this, um, where you get to talk deeply through the experience or through the frustration or through how you interpret things. All of those things also are ways to channel the negative emotions and give rise to opportunities for growth and deeper understanding. Prayer, prayer is huge, right? I define prayer as uh, uh, a moment of gratitude or an expression of gratitude for what has taken place somewhere in time, whether that time is in the future or in the now or in the past. But moving on to basically the final part of this discussion we're having here, we want to acknowledge that a lot of people are experiencing um, more negative emotions right now because the seasons just changed to winter. And I can take her out if you want to do this segment from your perspective. Uh, but what they call so-called seasonal depression. You go outside and it's cloudy all day, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have any sunshine, warmth, or you have very little. We still have some here in Texas, like we're fine, but Northeast and which is where I'm from, or Chicago, or like just a whole lot of the United States where we live, and the Northern Hemisphere period is very cloudy, very cold, things of this nature. Um, take away from the experience of an external warmth, which often is a mood uplifter, and it introduces cold, which can be for a lot of people a mood downer. And so there's something that has been diagnosed over society by the media called seasonal depression.
Yeah. So, um, and really what we're getting to, what I would like to get to with talking about this, is just a general sense of grief, whether that is grieving who you were this past year and grieving the dreams unfulfilled, or maybe you lost loved ones. There are people very close to us that have recently experienced the grief of losing someone very close to them. And on top of that, it's also, of course, the season change. And when the clouds are in the sky, sometimes we forget that there is light that can't be put out by a cloud, and that there's light that's still there. Or when we walk into a dark room, you forget that the that you are the light, that you carry light within you, and that in darkness also carries the it's like all colors of light together combined into one creates the darkness. So there is light in darkness. There is light in every moment of grief. There is the opportunity to um, tap into a deeper layer, a deeper level of awareness, of meeting, of seeing yourself, of seeing your truest self, of seeing the part of you that's not tainted by the negative emotion, that's not tainted by the past, that's not tainted by anything, and it can never be. So acknowledging the that one right now might not likely be what you thought it would be. And that could be even in the form of things in terms of your goals going by slower than you thought that they would, in terms of how long it's taking you to achieve them. But even with that, focus on, as best as you can in this moment now, focus in on just observing what's coming, observing without attachment. So without trying to label it as good or bad right now, just take it in. Just take it in. When we allow ourselves, like, let me just give an example, right? In my own life. Years back in 2020, one of my brothers passed. And he was one of my brothers that, I mean, growing up, we grew up in different households. I was not super close to him. I didn't really know him as a human being beyond what I would hear of him. And, but when he passed, it was during the all of the protocols that were happening in the hospitals in 2020, regarding the shots and the
Nobody can come.
pandemic.
Yeah, nobody can come.
No
see
one
him.
could go see him. He was alone, and he was already struggling with a lot of life challenges in terms of his health, and he was already struggling in terms of his mental health with many things. And there was this grief that came over me because I felt so deeply, because I knew that my other brothers who were close to him, who did grow up with him, were going through it so deeply themselves. And emotionally, I was grieving, and I didn't even think that I would really be grieving that deeply as I did. But it just kind of came over me one day after we'd already gotten the news that he'd passed, after receiving one of the protocols that he was given in the his hospital stay. So as I was grieving, and you might experience this too, as you're grieving, there are all these mixed emotions. It's kind of like being bombarded by uh, the thoughts, the memories, the if I had known what I could have changed, maybe it would have been different. Maybe it wouldn't have been that sort of situation if, and it could go on and on and on and really pull you down into a pit emotionally, where you feel heavy. I felt heavy. I felt like I was at a point where I was I had developed the practice of journaling before. And I would go into my closet and sit on the floor and journal. And I would, at that time, I was just crying. I was just crying, and I couldn't quite make sense of why I was crying so much and beyond the surface, because it would be different, right? If this was someone that I'd grown up with, that I spent every day with and formed this deep bond with, but I just was crying for his spirit. I was crying for the injustice that happened to him in the hospital. And I was crying for everyone like him that was also going through being afraid, being drugged, being left alone, being alone in your health crisis, and dying alone. And that hit me so hard that it was like a those wrecking balls hitting a wall, and all the bricks just come crumbling down. Like, I felt like I was crumbling down and pouring out all of these thoughts onto a journal page, because it was starting to affect how I was moving in the day, and I couldn't quite show up with my same freshness and same um, optimism until I knew I needed to process this on the page. So sometimes that's what you got to do. You got to write it down. You got to get it out of your mind. You got to get it out. So that's what I chose to do. And after I spilled everything onto the page and I was writing, and as I was writing from the perspective of knowing that his spirit is now free, and now he's not suffering as he was in his last days, in his last months even of life. And so much gratitude began to fill me. It was kind of like I needed to have those moments to speak from my spirit to his, to connect in that way, in order to really be able to release that part, to let that part go, to free myself and free him of the stories that I was telling to myself about the situation, and freeing him of being bound to those stories, right, that I was telling. So as the seasons are changing, this is a reminder that even in darkness, even when it seems cloudy outside, it's like a little wink, a little nudge from spirit to remind you that you are of the same source. You still carry the light within you. And that energy that allows for you to move your body, for you to see through your eyes, that sees through your eyes as like the window of God. It's important. It's to be cherished. It's to be watered. It's to be nurtured. And the ultimate light that there is, the ultimate life source, the ultimate is flowing through you. And as soon as you acknowledge that, and as soon as you allow for that to flow, to be embodied in your body, that divine, your highest, your best, your truest, your most evolved self, not anything else, not any other spirit or anything like that, but it's you. When you're allowing your truest self to show up in you, and even to help you with grief, help you through the things that you're experiencing, the level of clarity that comes, that it's like the clouds parting and the sun beginning to shine through, like how it's shining through this window right here. It's like as soon as you just have that little clink of acknowledgement, and it may not be instantaneous as you'd like it to be, but as soon as you remember that you can drop the load and just rest in that divine power that is infinite within you, the ultimate life source, that's when it's no longer that this means that. It's no longer the association of these clouds mean I'm going to be sad. It's no longer the association of this person passed and so I am alone now. It's not, or they are alone. It's not that. It's instead acknowledging the truth that we are all one living being. We're all cells in the body of God, the same one. And everything is an expression of that. And we are all constantly changing forms, moment to moment, reanimating the moment according to what we believe and according to what we know. And the things that prosper are the ones that are in alignment with truth. Those are the things that grant lasting freedom. So as your emotions bubble up and it's kind of like they encapsulate or lock us into a moment when we felt very strongly, and we relive ourselves from that stage of our life in a moment. But as soon as it'll begin to get easier to catch when you start to feel locked in to you when you were 7 and you were hurt by that person that did that thing, or you when you were 14 and this thing happened, and that's what you're embodying now. But now we're healing ourselves in this way by recognizing the true source of life, by acknowledging and recognizing the divine, the light within, and allowing for the emotions to be felt, observing them, practice observing them as observers this week, and share your reflections, even if it's in your journal. This is one of my freedom journals. I call it a freedom journal. On the first page, and it's been so used that it's like literally falling apart. But this freedom journal belongs to me, and it has my name. So this is the power of taking this time to reflect. One last thing I'd like to share before we close out. I know it's January, y'all. I know New Year's just happened. And I know that with the new year, according to the Gregorian calendar, January 1st comes this anxiety of setting a new goal and instantly running into the new goal. However, when it comes to action taking, when it comes to the influence that the planets have on all of us, Mars is in retrograde. So instead of plowing forward impulsively, we're being called to look back and review the plans, look into the fine details, and make those corrections to the plan, and start to slow and steady take action. Getting those daily routines geared up, tightened up, especially when it comes to health. Okay? So those daily self-care routines. That's why we talked about the Freedom Decree on a previous episode. That's why we talked about the Freedom 5. That's why we talk about it every day of this podcast, is because this is the time to build a solid foundation so that you can meet your goal. This is the time to wrap up those projects that you have that are still open, that have not been completed yet. This is the time to do that this month, because as soon as March comes with the true new year, with the springtime, the spring equinox, this is the time where all of the new things that you've been brewing, that you've been planning, that you've been cultivating within your spirit, within your life, within your daily routines and daily habits, will come to its deep new beginning. Okay, so we're planting the seeds now. We're really tending to the seeds that have already been planted. Rather, we're watering them. We're pulling out the weeds, metaphorically, and this is the time to do that. So don't get caught up in the narrative around New Year's Day and thinking that you have to start something new. No, you're continuing the same thing that you had, but now you got to come from a different perspective. You got to come from a deeper perspective one that's aligned with your vision of freedom, one that's aligned with things that you know to be true. And know that you're not alone in this, and we got it. We got this together, one step at a time. So with that being said, looking forward to seeing you all at Thrive Zone, which is the live event that we have in Austin on January 20th, MLK Day in a few weeks. The first 10 people that get a VIP ticket will be gifting a bonus ticket to 10 additional people. And a ton of other things you'll be gifted as well as a part of that experience. So go click the link in the bio to learn more. It's the first link that says Thrive Zone. And get your tickets, because this is great. It's going to be phenomenal for working moms and your families, right? So yeah, stay tuned. We'll catch you in the next episode for Cleanse Day tomorrow. And much love always. Take good care. Peace.